Welcome to the Growth Session with your host, Allison Meyer-Bond. Thank you so much for being here. So it's May. It's conference week. I'm a couple days in and I decide to pull out my Apple Maps and I zoom out just to get an idea of exactly how far away from home I actually am. And I kind of felt like somebody was playing a trick on me. I had the most amazing opportunity to go to a conference in Los Angeles in May, and it was my first time in LA, my first time in California, my first time on the West Coast entirely, and it was genuinely life-changing. There was a lot that happened that week that changed how I see myself professionally and also changed how I see myself as a working mom, and generally just how I view my own sense of worth in the field that I am in. So by the end of this episode, you're going to understand and have a very clear example of why feeling out of place somewhere doesn't necessarily mean that you don't belong there. So at the very beginning of the whole trip, as someone who is not the most comfortable with flying, I had a couple of flights that I had to take. And when I go on work trips like this, I kind of have to switch into work mode and I just need to get there and I just need to get it done mode. So that's what I started out as. I started just traveling and getting to my location. And somehow the imposter syndrome started even then, walking through the airport. As if everybody else in the airport didn't have their own complex lives going on, I felt like somebody would notice that I didn't belong there. And then we get into LA and everything is gigantic. The buildings are so tall, there are so many planes. And the next day I walk into one of the biggest learning and development conferences in the world, with professionals in my field that I look up to so much, that hold amazing credentials, that have had so many successes in their career, and that I truly just admire. And I will be so honest, I felt like I kind of snuck in through like a side door. And I had the chance to go to some of the most incredible sessions that included so many hands-on activities and real-life applications of the things that we were learning and things that we could take back to our jobs and our home companies and home organizations and use with our people. And there were a couple of conversations and a couple of sessions that I truly felt like, oh, whoa. Everybody is so good at this and everybody has so many valid opinions and so much good experience to back all of that up that I feel like I can't really match up. There was distinctly a moment in one of the sessions where the presenter had asked members of the audience to come up and assist with kind of an improv acting sort of activity. The people that the presenter pulled up from the crowd at random absolutely crushed it. And I was sitting in the back of the room, in the one of the very back tables, and it was the sort of the beginning of the conference. I was getting the feel of things, and I was watching these people just picked at random go up and just be so bold and improv act and do all of these wild things and voices and movements, and it was incredible. And I was just sitting back like, oh wow, I wish I could do that. That's not for me, but I wish I could do that. That's so cool. They're so cool. And then there was another moment where I was having a conversation with a group of very accomplished women. They were talking about their learning experiences, their career journeys, where they began and where they are now, and they were so wildly impressive and so supportive of each other. And I still had that feeling of, I wish I could be part of that. I wish I could be in that. I wish I could be that. And then as the conference went on and I got a little more brave, a little bit more comfortable, I began participating in the sessions more. I wasn't sitting in the back of the room, scared that somebody was going to notice me. I started joining in. I started raising my hand, answering questions, offering my input. And something crazy happened. People listened. People listened and confirmed that my experiences are also valid and add to the grand view of what talent development and of what our field is. Everybody's experiences for how they got there is completely valid. And having that told to me in direct and indirect ways changed a lot. So if you also have ever had that moment where you're sitting in a room, You're looking around kind of in awe at the people around you, wondering, how did they do that? How are they there? How did they get there? I don't think I'll ever get there. You are 1000% not alone in that. If you ever have a moment where you just kind of sit back and feel that negative sense of like relief, where you're letting go of the dreams that you want and those crazy what ifs. What if I did that? What if I just went for it? If you've kind of sat back and just been like, okay, I guess that one's not for me, and just let it slide, again, you're not alone. I've been there. As have so many people. So as far as what imposter syndrome feels like for me, and I have confidence that it feels like this for a lot of people. The textbook definition of imposter syndrome is one thing, but the feeling of sitting in a room and feeling like somebody's about to tap you on the shoulder and say, "What are you doing here?" is a completely different thing. There were genuinely times in the sessions where I was having really great conversations and I was offering solid input, and I was just waiting for someone to be like, "Who are you? Why? Why?" And first of all, that's so mean to myself. Second of all, that's valid. That's what our brains do to us sometimes. And then as all of this was going on, I was sitting in one of the sessions, and I happened to sit next to a couple of women that are just the coolest people. My soul sisters, love you forever. And we ended up having a good conversation just about everything with the workshop and about the sessions and such, but also kind of our experiences with the conference and just how absolutely wild it was. And from that moment, I felt a little bit more comfortable. I felt a little bit more settled. And it felt like, okay, maybe there is a spot for me here. Maybe I do belong here. I had hopes that I was going to make friends at this conference, but the people that I met, the connections that I made, the stories that I heard were way beyond anything I expected. When you feel like you're at a place that you can, try to find your people. Try to just chat with people. Maybe make a joke if that's something that you feel comfortable with, or say, "Oh, I like your shirt," or I really like the way that you answered that question. It might seem uncomfortable at first. We will get into the networking part of things, but just try it. Worst case scenario, they say, "Oh, thanks," and then move on. Best case scenario, you find wonderful people to talk to and you make friends. And speaking of making friends, my next point that I want to talk about is something that I just kind of naturally did when I was at the conference. And in looking back on it, I think I understand a lot more why I did it. If you know me, you know that I will make friends anywhere that I go, and I will talk to anybody. From the minute that I boarded the planes with the flight attendants, to the Uber rides, to the shuttle rides, to entering the conference center, asking them how their day is going, or mentioning something about the city, or asking them what their favorite place to eat in the city is, or really just kind of finding any way to connect with the people around me, even if it wasn't specifically the other folks at the conference, but the people from LA who were doing the jobs, who were shuttling us back and forth from hotels for the week. And I had some of the most hilarious, insightful, enlightening conversations with those people. And looking back on it, that feeling of imposter syndrome was so deep from the minute that I stepped out of my vehicle at the airport, that to battle that off and to feel like I belong more, I try to connect with people. I have conversations with people. I don't know if I do it intentionally or unintentionally at this point, but it didn't have to be the other people at the conference to help me get that sense of belonging, to kind of get that confidence to move forward and to stick it out and do the things and participate. It was the conversations that I had from the hotel to the conference center with the shuttle drivers. It was the conversations that I had during a break at the conference when I hung out and just chatted with the security guards. I didn't have to get validation from other people at the conference necessarily to feel like I belonged there. I found my place there, and from that place where I felt comfortable, I branched out from there. When I felt comfortable having those conversations and kind of having that moment of remembering who I am, that I'm able to have those conversations and that I can network well and I love talking to people. Once I had that moment of, oh, okay, I can do this. I can do this. This is fine. Then I was able to walk back into those sessions and I was able to participate in the activities and conversations feeling like my voice had some worth to it. Even if it was just simple, like talking about the weather and how my entire hometown could fit into one of the city blocks. It was enough that somebody just took a second to listen and chat with me and tell me their story, and it kind of like brought back the fire in me. Even though I was slow to open up, even though I was in my head for the first couple of days, they still valued what I had to say. They still asked for my input. They still wanted me involved in conversations. They still laughed with me and had fun with me and laughed at my jokes, which I very much appreciate always. And they gave me that sense of belonging throughout the week. And as somebody who is a young professional, who is learning how to be a professional, who is making the mistakes and doing the things, that was really, really incredible, because when I stepped back and in the main stage sessions, I just took a moment and looked around, and those huge screens and surrounded by thousands of people, knowing that I was a part of that and that what I am and what I have to offer was valuable enough to mean something to that, was it changed something. It made me feel throughout that week like what I have to say matters. And that's a gift that if somebody gives that to you in your life, that is so huge. I physically felt different throughout the week. I felt like when I flew into LA, I was closed off. I felt very kind of like, I mentioned it before, kind of zipped up. And I just felt uncomfortable. Throughout the week, I could genuinely see myself walking taller. I could feel myself walking taller. I could feel kind of my chin raised a little bit. I didn't feel like I had to hide. I didn't feel like somebody was going to ask me to leave, because what was I even doing there? It just felt like I could walk a little taller and what I had to say mattered. And that is a gift that I hope everybody gets at several times throughout their lives. And kind of the last point that I want to make about all of this is, at the hotel that we were staying, there was a little bench kind of sitting out front. And as somebody from a smaller area, smaller town, small buildings, all of that, sitting on the bench out front at the end of the day after the conference and looking up at these gigantic skyscrapers, seeing all of these people walk by and just hundreds of cars and noise and planes in the sky and helicopters and sirens and all of these things, it felt like that iPhone map zoom out moment. When I was in that conference, that imposter syndrome felt so big. It felt so all encompassing. And it felt like that was kind of like my pinpoint view at that time. But then when I sat back and had that zoom out moment sitting in front of the hotel, looking around, looking at apartment buildings with thousands of windows up them, I looked around at all of it and was like, okay, I think the world is so much bigger than all of these thoughts that I'm carrying and all of these, everybody's looking at me, everybody thinks that I don't belong, etc., etc. Being able to look around and see all of those people walking around and living their lives in all of the thousands of windows that I saw reminded me that every single person that I saw, every single person that I saw at the conference, every single person that I see day to day, they're living their own life. Believe it or not, they're living their own lives. They're feeling all of the thousands of feelings that they're feeling throughout the day. And quite honestly, at that point, I was like, why do I feel like people are paying attention to me so much that they're going to think, this girl doesn't belong and this girl doesn't have X, Y, and Z? They're at the conference learning as well. There's so much going on around us. This person has a family perhaps back home that maybe they're getting messages from. This person just went through a significant loss. This person had just gotten married before coming here. Like me, I had just had a baby before going 4 months prior. And it was just that moment of, sometimes I think it's good when my problems feel small. That, I don't know if that's a hot take or not, but sometimes it is good to feel like, okay, this feels huge and explosive inside of me right now, but it's inside of me. And I can control that, but it's inside of me. Nobody else is looking at me and telling me all of this right now. Factually, I'm just sitting in this session, listening and maybe responding and asking some questions. Everybody else is having their own experience. Maybe the person sitting next to me is feeling the same way that I am, thinking that I'm going to ask them why they're here. All of these thoughts and all of these things that feel so big, looking around, looking at all of the stuff that everybody else has going on, in that moment, it didn't feel like it was so big and so dreadful. Granted, that is not to diminish imposter syndrome. It is not to diminish anybody's feelings in that moment, because it is so valid. And trust me, it took a long time to get to that point where being okay with my problems feeling small was something that I could do. And it's okay for my problems to feel big sometimes. They're my problems. Who else is going to care about them except for me? So if you're still in that mindset, if you have that mindset of, I don't belong, someone's going to recognize that, they know that I'm fake, they know that I'm faking it until I'm making it, and they're going to figure it out. If you're also having that moment, I want to tell you, first of all, that is so valid and so fair. And I also want to tell you that on the flip side of that, everybody else is having their own feelings. Everybody else is feeling all of the things. And for me, I eventually just had to come to the understanding that the responsibility for those big feelings lies with myself, as much as I can't stand that sometimes. Those big feelings, I'm the one that needs to take care of them. Nobody else. Nobody else at the conference had the responsibility or needed to or should have come up to me and said, just so you know, you belong here and you're doing a really great job in X, Y, and Z. Everybody else was having their own experiences. I need to provide that for myself. I need to seek out experiences or conversations or a sense of belonging wherever I can find it in those moments to address what's going on in me, because it's me. And there's so much more to say about conference week. There was just some of the best food. I witnessed some of the most wild things, and again, met some of the coolest people and had some really great conversations. Learned a lot. So my main takeaway for this is that maybe imposter syndrome doesn't mean that you don't belong somewhere. If you're feeling that, maybe in that moment, take a second to zoom out. Zoom out and take a look at the whole picture, the big picture. And finally, thank you so much for such an incredible response to my first episode. I am so excited to release the second episode, and I can't wait to hear what everyone thinks about it. I hope it resonates with some folks. We all experience this. We all know what imposter syndrome is. If you didn't, now you do. And chances are we've all felt this way. So if you'd like to, and if you feel comfortable doing so, put a comment down below and just maybe let other people know that this happens to others as well. And I would absolutely love and appreciate it if you could subscribe and check out next week's episode. I'm so excited to be talking about life as a working mom, and we will get into it. I have lots to say. I would love it if you followed along. Last but not least, if you know someone that might need a reminder that they belong in the room, send this to them. Send this to them. Let them know that it's okay. We all belong. Feeling out of place does not mean that you don't belong. Thank you for watching the growth session. If you'd like to subscribe and follow along, that would be awesome. I also am going to put my socials up on the screen if you'd like to check those out. Thanks.